I've been in training, but I'm back. Hello Tarantula lovers, I'm Alex and you're watching Tarantula Haven. Sorry I've been away for a couple of weeks. I had some things that I had to take care of, and all last week I was away at a training for school for code.org, and it's a pretty cool program that I learned about, and I get to teach kids computer science and I get to teach them how to code. And if your school does not have computer science, then you better ask why, because computers are everywhere and you're preparing them for the future. So what I have for you today I am doing a couple of rehousings. Actually, I'm doing about 5 rehousings. 4 of them are my Torino Pelma sazimai, commonly known as the Brazilian blue. And they've gotten some size on them, and I have little pixie boxes, so they've outgrown that. I need to put them in a larger enclosure. The other one is one that I'm not looking forward to, and I've been researching it, and I've been looking at everybody else's videos that have done this. I am rehousing my Rehousing Balfouri Communal. I have 6 Rehousing Balfouri, but I only see 5 out at a time, so I gotta see if I still have 6 or if I lost one somewhere in between. So that's what we're doing today. So my Torino Pelma sazimai, they've gotten a little bit larger. I've had them in these little pixie boxes right here ever since they were tiny, tiny slings, and they've gotten to the point where they've pretty much have run out of room in there. They just have a little bit of room to move around, and that's about it. So I'm ready to put them into a larger enclosure, and I'm going to put them in these boxes right here. And these are just the next step up in these stacker boxes. I don't know what they call this one, but those are called the pixie boxes. So it should be easy as pie because these are New World species, so it should be an easy transfer just to get them over there. Torino Pelma sazimai, they do tend to be a little bit skittish and kind of feisty. The very first thing that happened when they were tiny slings and I was putting them into their new enclosure was one of them actually climbed up on my finger and latched on with teeny tiny little fangs. So I've gotten tagged by them, but they were so small the fangs didn't even penetrate. But that's how feisty these little guys are. They are prone to bolting. I'm sorry, that's my bird getting a little excited there. But they are prone to bolting, although I haven't experienced that at all since I've had them, only at the beginning when I first put them into their new enclosures. But because they've made that their home and they're used to it, that's kind of where they want to stay, so I haven't had them try to bolt out or anything like that. But just in case, I do have my catch cut ready, just if I have to chase them around or anything like that. Okay, so the first one, and as you can see, doesn't have a whole lot of room to move around. This one is still kind of in a pinkish phase. It hasn't quite gotten its blue hair yet, or the blue sheen to it, and that will probably come in the next molt. And as you'll see on my next ones, okay, so anyway, I'm just going to walk him over, and he doesn't really want to go over. There he goes. He's clinging to the box. Let's see if we can get him to walk across. Nope. You don't want to let go of the box. Come on. There you go. All right. Okay, so that was easy. Just walked him right over, and I don't have any decorations or anything in the box just yet. I will be putting that in there later on. I'll put a piece of cork bark in there for it to hide, and a water dish, and maybe some foliage in there for it to give it a little bit of a naturalistic setting. But that's it for that one. That's one down. All right, piece sazimai number 2. All right, if you can see here, this one is a little bit darker than the other one. Notice the abdomen has more fur on it, and the legs are a little bit darker. They started to develop that bluish sheen to them. Let me move this over just a tad into the light. Maybe you can see it better there. All right, so there we go. So we got a little bit of a better look at it, and let's go ahead and move it over. Okay, not much of a response from them. There's no defensiveness. They're just kind of being stubborn and don't want to move. I'm not getting any bolting. That's good. Come on. There we go. There we go. Okay. Well, a little bit of bolting there. All right, and that's because he doesn't really have anywhere to go. Once I put the cork bark in there, it'll feel a little bit more secure. All right, so there's P sazimai number 2. P sazimai number 3. And again, this one is starting to display some of the bluish color. It's much darker, and notice it's got some red hair on the abdomen, but underneath it's nice and black. So this one's getting more toward its adult colors. It hadn't quite got there yet, but that's almost there. Okay. So let's walk you over. All right, a little bit of a defensive posture there, but not much. Come on. Come on. This one's acting a little bit more skittish. I imagine it's going to try to bolt. All right, here we go. Nope. Keeps turning back. All right, buddy. There you go. You're in your new home now. All right. I think we've got it. Nope, it's clinging to the underside. Come on. Playing ring around the rosy here, doesn't want to let go. There we go. Okay, so he's in. All right, and you can see that blue coming in now in the better light. All right, that's 3 down. Okay, P sazimai number 4. And I believe this is my largest one. Give you a glimpse there. And I don't know why this one has grown so much larger than the other 2 or the other 3. But yeah, this one's always seemed to be ahead of the pack. It's just been like 1 molt ahead, it seems like. All right, so let's go ahead and move it over. All right, stubborn. All right, same thing. Clinging to the box. You don't want to let go. Let go. Go that way. There you go, let go of the box. All right. Okay, so this guy's in right there in the corner. All right, and that is number 4. That takes care of the pea sazimai. So up next, I'm going to rehouse my Monocentropus Balfouri Communal. And these guys are old world. They are a baboon species, and they are incredibly fast. And they're very prone to bolting. I've watched Tom Moran rehouse his. I've watched Dark Den, Petco from Dark Den rehouse his. I've watched some other ones, and they are not easy. So I'll have to do my best and hopefully get them over. There's supposed to be 6 in here. And like I said before, I've only seen 5 out at a time. And there was something that Tom Moran had said where he said that over the winter he didn't see any of his, and the same thing was true for me. I didn't see them hardly at all during the winter time, and maybe 1 or 2 would come out of the den and just come out and wander around and hunt and you know, when I fed them, but I never saw all of them out at once. And as things warmed up, as we got closer to spring and summer, I started seeing them out more and more. And they're real shy, any kind of movement or anything like that, and they bolt right back in. But so that's why you don't see them out right now. But they, you know, when it got warmer, I started seeing more and more until finally I saw 5 of them sitting out. But there's that 6th one that I'm worried about. I did have a very tiny one when I first got them, and I was kind of worried that it might not make it. So I'm hoping it's still in there, but maybe it got eaten, maybe it died or something. So I'm not really sure if I'm going to find all 6. But as I was saying, something that Tom Moran said has kind of stuck with me. He said that that when he rehoused his, that, you know, sometimes he'd see several of them out except for 1, and it always worried him because that 1 he wasn't sure if it was alive or dead, and sure enough it was still in there. So it's like 1 always lingers back, and we'll see if that's true today. Oh, and I almost forgot, I'm rehousing them into this enclosure right here. This is actually a small aquarium that my daughter gave me. She had a betta set up in there with some other fish, and she upgraded her aquarium, so she didn't need this anymore. And it's kind of scratched up, but I don't really care because this is not their permanent enclosure. But I've gone ahead and set it up, and I've got it kind of at a slant or a slope here, and I've got some cork bark in there and some sticks for anchor points for them to web up. They will eventually web all this up. So I thought it was pretty cool. It made a nice little acrylic enclosure, and it's got a lid that opens up. I had to seal up the holes that were here. So I put some duct tape there and made sure that I double-sided it so they wouldn't get stuck to it. So hopefully this will make a nice enclosure for them. It sticks pretty well now that I've added the duct tape to it because it makes it nice and tight. And hopefully this will be pretty good for them. And I think I'd probably say that by December I might have to put them into a larger enclosure. Maybe not until next year, but the next enclosure will be their permanent enclosure. So that gives me a little bit of time to go ahead and save up money to buy them a nicer enclosure, or maybe even make one of my own. Okay, so I sped up the video for most of the portion where I am digging around looking for the tarantulas. As you can see, they webbed it up really, really well. They've got a big mat of web there. Underneath all that webbing, there is some cork bark. And when I first put them in there, they went directly underneath that cork bark. And that's kind of where they made their den. Obviously, they didn't really have anywhere else to make their den, so they just kind of started digging underneath it. I didn't realize how deep it went. It went all the way down to the bottom of this little tub. So once I cleared all the webbing out, I kind of pretty much expected tarantulas to come running out as soon as I started digging underneath the cork bark, but that wasn't the case. Now, these guys are survivors, so primarily they're going to kind of huddle down and act like they're not there so that you can overlook them. But finally, I saw some movement, and I used my little catch cup there to kind of hold over, and I was trying to coax it out. So I finally see the first one, and I'm like, okay, and I see those little legs sticking out for a second one, and I figure, okay, I'll deal with this one and let's see what happens. But the other one decided to come out. So this is my worst nightmare right here, having two tarantulas that are very flighty and trying to deal with them. And like you see there, it did go outside of it. Fortunately, I was smart enough to go get a Sterlite tub and put them in there so that I'd have a secondary line of defense, and as you can see there, it helped me out big time. If you hear warbling and chirping sounds in the background, that's my bird again. Apparently he thinks that he has to talk every time I talk. Alright, so I slid a card underneath there so that I could keep it trapped inside of the catch cup, and I will move it over. In the meantime, the other one's kind of cruising around, and I'm really worried that it's going to take off. So once I have the other one secured, I go ahead and move the catch cup over to the new enclosure. And I use my little stick to kind of prod it down. And once I get it down to the substrate easily enough, that is all there was to it. No bolting, no taking off. So far so good. So now to go back and take care of the one that's still out. And he's just sitting there waiting for me. And I figured this one might be easy, but I decided to go out of the enclosure as well. And again, I'm grateful that I thought about putting that second Sterlite tub there so that I would have that second line of defense. And I've got that one as well. Okay, so at this point, I'm kind of worried about putting the new one in, but that goes uneventful as well. I was worried that the other one might try to bolt, but it's just sitting there not moving. So now I'm going to work on getting that cork bark out, now that I know that they're not directly underneath it. One thing that amazed me was that it was kind of difficult to find them. I mean, I could see movement here and there, but for the most part, I didn't really see them. Of course, they've made kind of a little sack with their webbing, and that was where their den was. But right here, I am poking and prodding, and whoop, there he goes. And that's just how they are. It's that fight or flight reflex. They either just sit there, and once they're exposed, they just take off. And this one does give me a run for my money here. It goes all over the place. You can see legs flying there. And it does not want to comply at all. Fortunately, again, I managed to keep it within the Sterlite tub. It was even going out of it, but running back in. and I finally cornered it and was able to secure it inside the catch cup. So that is M. Balfouri number 3. I had to prod that one because I was worried that it was going to run up the side. You see the other one underneath it right there, it's kind of covered up by the larger one. And now to put in number 3. Once again, I really apologize about the birds. They think that whenever I talk, they need to talk. And I was worried this guy was going to run back up the catch cup, so I decided to kind of change my method and put it down lower on the substrate. And we got it. That was a big one. I didn't realize how big it had gotten. Okay, so we're up to 3. Now let's see if we can find number 4. And this one, because I'd already taken the cork bark out, it seemed to make it a little bit easier for me. There's that little guy. And I just managed to keep it secured within the catch cup and just use my stick to prod it. And it eventually just climbed up the catch cup, which is ideal. That's what you want to do. That's why it's good to have little holes in the side of the catch cup like I had there. So that one is secured. So keep an eye on that little guy that's moving around right there. It just crawled right out of the enclosure. So there I am with another catch cup, and it managed to go underneath the enclosure, but right in the pedestal area. You'll notice it has like a little black pedestal underneath. So I put the original one back, number 4, and number 3 is still underneath the enclosure there. So I'm trying to get it with the catch cup, and fortunately for me it wasn't too hard and I just caught it right there. So I just set it aside, and this is M. Balfouri number 4 going in. Number 3 is off to the side in a catch cup, and I'll take care of that one later. Okay, so now we're looking for number 5. And I already know I have 5. I've seen all 5 out and about at one point. So I know I have at least 5. But it's that number 6 I'm worried about. And so far I haven't seen a little guy. Well, that one was pretty little, but I haven't seen what I consider to be my smallest guy. And I'm worried that it did not make it. So this is M. Balfouri number 5, and that was an easy capture. So here goes M. Balfouri number 5. And one of the things that I've noticed about the M. Balfouri is that when they go into a new enclosure, it reminds me of the velociraptors in Jurassic Park. They will immediately, well, not so much immediately, but they'll start to look for weaknesses in the enclosure for escape routes. Obviously, it's new to them. Right here, I'm looking for number 6. And, you know, so they start checking the area. They start going to the top and testing the lid to see if there are any weaknesses or places where they can escape. And it isn't until they're satisfied that they can't get out that they'll actually start looking to make a den and just kind of set themselves in there. All right, so finally I did see some movement, and I had to dig all the way to the bottom. I was being gentle, even though it looked like I was being kind of rough there. I just sped that up, but I was hoping to find it, and sure enough, there was a little guy down at the very bottom. So Yes, there were 6 total. I did not lose any of my M. Balfouris, and I was very happy about that. So M. Balfouri number 6. I've got this guy up at the top of the lid. I got to scare him down. I always worry when I open the lid that one of them's going to dart out, like the third one did. So they kind of move around, little jerky movements, but so far so good. They're all staying down at the bottom. So I felt good enough that I could take the lid off. So M. Balfouri number 6 into the enclosure, and that one was quick and easy. And now I've got to deal with M. Balfouri number 3, the little rascal that took off and got out of the enclosure. So I've got it off to the side here, and I want to make sure that everything's good, that they're not going to take off and bolt on me. So now I can bring in the catch cup. And I figured the best thing to do for me here is to just put the whole catch cup in with the tarantula in it, because he wasn't going to take off from the top there. He's just going to sit there at the top. So then, that is not a helicopter, that is my bird being angry with me because I won't let it out of the cage. Alright, so then that one comes out. And I did get a little bit of bolting. You see the legs come out there? So I'd be real careful not to chop his legs off. And I just slid it back into place, and I am good to go. I was so relieved. So one last thing is I got to get that catch cup out of there. So I prod this guy down to where I felt secure enough that I could take the lid off. And success. And I apologize for any out of focus shots here. My camera, my DSLR doesn't really have an autofocus on it, so I have to kind of manually focus, and my eyesight isn't so great, so it was a little bit difficult for me to tell when I was completely in focus. So just a quick view around to see them all moving around. And like I said, they're already kind of webbing up. You see that one stretching some web around? And like I said before, they kind of look around the enclosure, they feel it, and look for any weaknesses, any places where they can get out. And until they're satisfied, they'll just kind of wander around and look at the new place and find themselves a nice secure spot to make their enclosure or make their den. And they'll all group together in that den. They will all bundle up, and that's where they'll stay. They won't separate themselves. They will always bunch up together. And right here you see a little bit of social interaction there. This is one of the most fascinating things to me about the M. Balfouris, how they get along together. And they come in contact with each other and kind of recognize each other and tap each other with their little legs, and then go their separate ways. Very rewarding species to have. Well, it looks like Tom was right. There was 6 in there. That last one, I started to give up hope, but I went all the way down to the bottom of the substrate, and sure enough, there it was. I couldn't believe how deep their den went. They just kind of went right underneath that cork bark that I put in there and just went straight down and burrowed down into that substrate and just had a nice big den in there. One thing that I find kind of fascinating is that I never saw them kicking out their molts, and sure enough, when I'm opening up the webbing there, I found all these little molts and stuff. So I don't understand that. It seems like almost every tarantula will usually kick their molt out of the den after a certain period of time, but these guys didn't. They just kept them in there. So eventually things will get pretty cluttered up. So I don't know if that's just a typical behavior of the Monocentropus balfouri, or if it's just a fluke and just these guys did that. But I guess I'll find out later. I'm pretty happy to get them here. It was every bit as difficult as you might think. When you're dealing with communal, there's so many little guys trying to run around, and they're so quick to bolt that I don't know if you noticed, but my hands really started shaking there because I was getting nervous that I was going to get more than one bolting at the same time. And at one point I did. I had one bolt out of the enclosure while I was getting the other, and trying to get the other one put in. So luckily I had an extra catch cup and so on, which really saved my butt on that. So yeah, if you're going to keep a communal, make sure you know what you're getting into. It is pretty stressful trying to move these over to the new enclosure, or trying to rehouse them. So like Tom Moran said, you might want to start out big just so that you minimize the amount of rehousings that you have to do. So, and now that they're in the new enclosure, I can observe them a lot better. It's so cool to be able to see them out and about, moving around and so on. But that won't last long. They'll web this up in no time, and then I'll probably just see them out here and there when they're hunting, or, you know, just at night. Anyway, that wraps it up for me for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more, subscribe. If you want to support this channel, I do have a Redbubble store where you can buy Tarantula Haven merchandise. So any proceeds that come from that will go directly to help grow and support this channel. Until next time, keep loving them tarantulas.